the $5 to $10 increase isn't going to affect anybody's decision because they all know, okay, we're combining the two associations together, so you're probably going to pay more for the association anyways with your heifers now being considered under one.
I mean, honestly, are any of y'all members of another Texas association? I have no idea what anybody else are.
Compared to some of the other associations, the Hereford Association for the junior member dues is pretty inexpensive. A lot of them are $25 to $50 just for a junior state due.
Yeah, Simmental's are like 25 or 30, plus you have to pay for all of your magazines, plus being registered in the American Simmental Association. Keys are about 50 for juniors, so I mean, we're actually on the inexpensive side.
Lumping it up.
So if we kept around the 15 to 20 range, do y'all think that's reasonable then?
I would say yes.
Anyone else?
I think it'll be fine.
Okay. Well,
I think it'll be great.
Okay, good. Well, that just gives JD and I kind of a basis. You know, if people ask us kind of what the committee's thinking, at least we'll be able to answer, you know, staying in the $15 to $20 range. And I think it sounds like y'all were leaning more towards 15. If I don't want to speak for everyone if y'all weren't, but does that sound about right?
Sounds good.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're looking at possibly 316 kids as junior members at that's $4,740. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So that would just be slightly under
Be $900 less.
$900 less.
Is what it would end up.
So we're looking at $900 to show the junior association.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. I know that you haven't gone through this. My question is whose idea was it to join the junior association? I mean, why are we having to do this now?
I'm not sure it was any one person's idea. I mean, I heard people talk about it in the barns for several years. You know, whether or not this comes to a vote, I think it was a good thing to at least sit down and discuss it formally. That way we have an answer once and for all. I mean, I've heard several people throughout the barns discuss it. I don't think it was any one person's idea.
It wasn't. There were several parents that came forward, and Savannah asked me about bringing it to the table so that people would get on the train or get off the train. And I said, go for it. Let's bring it up, and if they don't want to, they don't want to, and it'll never be talked about for a while.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid that by joining our association, and I know that Savannah said in the meeting that she had talked to Stephen, and he said that they would not join the shows. But since then, we know of 4 people, my husband being one, that has talked to Stephen, and he told us just yesterday that yes, if the junior association does combine, the steer show will be combined. They have already started talking about bringing in possibly 2 other breeds to take the place of the Hereford breed.
Well,
so that would be losing 30 sale slots in the Fort Worth show, which means it's not a big deal, I know, for the juniors because most of the kids who show junior Hereford steers are probably not members of the junior association. But it's a big deal for the breeders because the ones who are just Hereford and just breed, do the Hereford steers and stuff, they're losing sales because they are not going to have the 30 sales slots, in the Fort Worth Stock Show.
I agree, and that's a big deal, and that's absolutely not what we want to happen. I don't think anyone on this committee wants that to happen. I have heard that the rumors that they were wanting to do that, and I think that from my perspective, and I mean, I want everyone's opinions on this. I see us, yes, we are a large junior association, but we are, to the Fort Worth board, we are a small fish in the big pond. And I think it comes down to the bottom line with them, and they're going to do what they want. Do I absolutely want to keep those 30 sales spots for our juniors? Yes. But I don't see how our decision affects them. And you, Sarah, you're right. Just out of curiosity, the other day, I looked through the Houston and Fort Worth sales spots, and in the polled and horned combined steers, only 20% of the sales slots in each show go to our members. And, I think we can do what we want with that information. But also I was thinking, it would be good to get those names out there and see if y'all know of any of them and try and get them to join our association. I mean, we have a state show, steer show, and I think it would be a great idea to try and get those kids involved and get them a part of our association.
I think if we combined our associations, that would be just another excuse to combine the breeds.
Okay.
I mean, if they're already talking about combining the steer show, then our decision to combine our association is not going to affect them any means. They're already talking about combining the steer show. So, I mean, it doesn't really have as big as effect as what they're trying to make it out to be. Our decision may affect them, but they're still deciding there's a possibility chance they're going to combine the steer show either way.
That's not the case. The case is when the discussion was brought about of merging the two associations together, Fort Worth was approached and asked, would they change? And the answer was, there's a possibility. They were not thinking about combining the two shows until the conversation about merging the two associations came up.
Oh, sorry. I got confused on that. But I still mean, if they combine them, they're still going to combine them. I mean, if they really think it's going to help their numbers, they're not going to, we might have some say in it, but they're not going to really pay attention to us because, like Riley said, we're a small fish in this huge pond.
Robbie, I heard, and this is just through the rumor mill, I have no basis from this, that this had been on the table for about 3 years.
The merger? You talking about merging the two associations?
No, the steer show.
The steer show.
At Fort Worth.
Okay, I haven't heard that, so you may be correct. I had a long talk with Stephen yesterday, and that never came up. The conversation that came up was that since we're talking about merging, they're looking at, because they've been approached by the Angus, either one of the Angus associations and the Charlet about getting their own breed.
Okay.
So, but you may be correct on what you're saying. I don't know for sure.
Well, and I don't know for sure either. That was just something that when the subject was brought up, and actually I heard it was going to an American breed like Brahman. So, I mean, again, this is the rumor mill going. I don't know anything for sure.
If anything were to happen with the way, so Fort Worth Steer Show is Angus, Hereford, Polled Hereford, Shorthorn, American, and your exotics. The breeds and the exotics are just, they're crossbred, there's 12 classes. If anything were to happen, from what I've been told, they'd switch to what they've done in San Antonio and Houston and make it a red, other crossbred, the black crossbred, and then the mixture of all of it. Is what
okay, well, that was the two breeds that he mentioned yesterday in our conversation.
Okay.
So that's the only reason I'm mentioning it now.
Okay.
Relative to our class sizes at Fort Worth, Herefords tend to have about 25 to 30 head per class at Fort Worth. Angus sit between the 20 to 30 as well. Shorthorns are larger, about 40. Your crossbred classes end up at close to 90 though, 80 to 90 head.
So do the Americans.
The Americans are too. That's kind of the issue that they're facing right now.
I mean, JD and I both told y'all at the first meeting, you know, if the steer shows are gonna combine, that's not our intent.
And if they are going to combine, then we don't want the association combined. It affects the entire breed as a whole.
And just like with what Sarah said, like there's only 20% of our juniors, and I mean, I'm sure it varies, but 20% of our juniors made the sale at Fort Worth this year. But yes, it does affect the breeders that breed for Hereford steers for Fort Worth and Houston. I mean, that affects them, and we don't want to hurt them as well. We are in this together. So honestly, my recommendation, and this is my opinion, I would assume Fort Worth has to have their premium book out sooner or later, and we'll know whether or not they merge. I mean, as far as
they are not merging this year or 2019. I've already been told that.
Okay.
Because I asked that question yesterday.
Okay.
Because he's already
has there been any talk of merging the female shows, the heifer shows?
Not to my knowledge.
Anybody heard of any of that?
No.
So what percent of our membership would be heifer participants?
75 approximately. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I looked through there, and going off of the first division and each class, approximately 75% of the participants are members.
I think that's close.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate.
Just
number.
curious where we were at. I didn't have any idea of the numbers. Just curious where we were at.
I didn't do the whole show at Fort Worth because it's a large show, but in both the Horn and Polds, in the first division, each class was 75% to 80% was how many members we had in those classes. And I'm assuming Houston's the same way. It was mostly the same kids, so.
Okay, Riley, my question then is if we merge and, okay, say we merge and the steer show merges, is the heifer show going to merge because the AHA puts in $1,065 to each show? Is the AHA going to pull out $1,065 from and just say, no, you have to combine the show? Or because if AHA pulls out their $1,065, Stephen said that the heifer show will be combined.
I doubt it.
If AHA was going to pull their money, they would have pulled their money. That was a deal that when San Antonio combined 15 years ago, however long ago that was, that's when AHA pulled their money. They figured out shortly after that they messed up, and they quit that kind of stuff right after that. I don't see them pulling their money anytime soon on any of these. There's enough people from the Southwest region on the board, the AHA board. I wouldn't see that we get bad treatment at all. They're going to work to keep us happy down here.
Also from the perspective, like according to AHA show guidelines, I mean, their national shows are separate, and I realize the Fort Worth Junior show isn't necessarily a national show, but they say 75 head keeps them separate, and we have easily that in the polled and horned shows each year. So, I mean, I wouldn't see them pulling their money, but also, I mean, I wouldn't mind calling AHA to find out for sure, if that's what we want to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any other questions, discussion about that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We'll keep going on our list here in front of us. Can everyone see the screen? I guess I didn't ask that earlier.
I cannot. I'm just on the call.
Oh, okay. But computer people, can y'all see the screen?
Yeah, I can see
I
it.
can't see the.
Okay.
I have it on my phone. I'm calling it also.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is leadership positions, and how would y'all like to restructure if we were to merge? And I just want to hit, Tim Lockhart and I kind of talked about this briefly after our last discussion, and we kind of looked at a few things, and we were thinking you know, we have an idea we want to present to y'all, and I want y'all to tell us what you think. Tim, do you want to kind of explain it to us?
Sure. So currently, both associations have about 12 directors that serve 3-year terms. Plus, the Horns have some junior directors that serve 1-year alternating terms. I think if you look at most association top positions, there's typically, you know, deals very similar to that. 12 people, 12 person board with 3-year terms. That tends to be the most, well, I don't know if it's the best, but it's the one that happens to be the most current, or the one that we see the most. I can tell you from our family standpoint, we definitely enjoyed the junior director positions on the Horn side. Devin took advantage of that, you know, and we like that. So I think that's something that as we move forward, our family would like to see that we do. Riley and I've talked about a lot of different things. One of the main things we've heard said is that we don't want to lose our leadership positions. I'm 100% in agreement with that. Part of my problem is of where we're at right now. I'd give 2 examples in the last, well, in the calendar year of 2018. One being at the Fort Worth meeting. It was pretty hard for me to tell, sitting in the junior meeting, who was what, which kids were horned and which kids were polled. I'm not telling you that's a bad thing. I'm just telling you that I couldn't tell the difference because that's how our meetings are run. But because of the way we do things, we don't have a president that's in charge of everything. We've got 2 different presidents that kind of work with or against, or not against, but with and then to the side of and back and forth and whatnot with each other. That becomes very difficult. We saw that, those of y'all that were on our state show meeting the other night saw that. I'm going to tell you now, if y'all know me, you know I don't have a problem saying what's on my mind, and if I offend somebody, I apologize right now. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there now. But in our state show meeting the other day, we have 2 different associations with 2 different presidents. We had one side of the deal that had all of our stuff, all of their stuff, had printouts and whatnot, or, you know, been emailed the agenda and whatnot. The other side hadn't seen anything, or best I can tell, we hadn't. And I'm an advisor and I have a director. Where one president basically ran the thing, and that's the way I've seen that for the last several years. And really, when I say several, Devin's been back involved for the last 5 probably years, and prior to that, we were involved for a long time. I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this, and that's the reason that I think this came up. So what I would say is this: what if we had a president-elect, and then several vice presidents that did specific jobs and actually had to do their job? Because right now, I think there's a bunch of people on this phone call that have an office that probably don't really do anything other than the days that you're at the state show. I could be wrong, and that's not of any fault of your own, but it's because none of our offices have any responsibilities. None of our offices have a reason for doing them, a list of criteria you're supposed to do. I mean, realistically, honestly, in the poll side, we used to hate being reporter because you actually had a job. You had to make that dadgum scrapbook. Nobody wanted to do that. I mean, that was the job. You told your kid, don't be president and don't be reporter. I mean, I think that's kind of funny, but that's the truth. But realistically, if we're going to raise kids that know what they're doing and are learning, we got to start putting some stuff in here. Why wouldn't we do something where, and this is very, very early. I'm not saying this is anything how it ought to be. I'm saying this is some ideas. What if we had 3 vice presidents? Okay. What if we had a vice president of cattle, And those people were responsible for state show entries, check-in, show ring type stuff, and they were the person that was that. And they reported the president, but they were the one that did that. What if we had another vice president that was possibly of events? Maybe I don't have my names exactly right, but you'll get the idea. So they're responsible for all our contests. Team fitting, team marketing, speech, which, I mean, the Polettes kind of handle speech, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they're responsible for all our different contests that we do. And then those people actually have to do something. Right now, I don't know who the vice president of the pole or the horn is, but I can tell you, I bet they don't do a lot. I no disrespect to the person that's that person, but right now you have no job. It takes a lot of pressure off the president. And I think the third one, and this is a little more open type of deal, but possibly like a vice president of membership, which is more to communicate with our members maybe year round. Maybe also a person, there's been a lot of talk of bringing back a Texas type pride. When I was a kid, we had that, a deal where we had a leadership conference. We actually invited all the other breed associations to come and participate. Texas Hereford, they did a great event. Man, it was an awesome deal, and we learned a lot and met a lot of kids in our state that I am still best friends with at this time in my life. So I think there's some things there. I had a conversation this week because I had to do a reference type thing for a gal that used to work for us with the USDA. And this lady called me, and she went down the list, and I gave a glowing review because I think this gal that worked for us was awesome. And when we got done, we talked for just a little bit, and like she said, I read a lot of these kids' resumes, and it said I was president of this, and I was president of that. She said, then they show up, we interview them, they can't string two sentences together. They don't know how to do things. They've never actually done it. They were president, or they were vice president, or they held an office. But at the end of the day, they didn't have to do anything. They didn't learn anything. And her comment was, this young lady that, Cody, that I was given the reference for, she was awesome. I could tell right up front that this gal knew. But she said, I learned to check resumes. So she said, I do. She said, we've got a lot of positions we need to fill, and we're just not finding kids to do it because they all have great resumes, but they just don't know because they've not been made to do. And honestly, guys, when I was a kid and we were doing this, we ran the association, that's what we had to do it ourselves. And now it seems to me a lot like the president does it. And then they just hope that the next year's president does as good a job. And, really the last 2 or 3 years, we've had some presidents that have worked to try to hand stuff down. But why wouldn't we just build a thing where we had you had a progression where you worked forward? You had to deal with your deal. The cattle person had to deal with the entries. The events person had to deal with all the contests. Membership had to deal with communications and stuff like that. And I think there needs to be other, obviously secretary, treasurer, reporter, stuff like that. I'm not telling you that I know it all, but I'm just telling you, there's got to be a better way than the way we're doing it because it's not working. So I'll get off my soapbox and talk.
I have something to say. How the president, in each of the presidents, I don't know how that is on the pole side, but I'm first vice of the horned, and I've repeatedly asked to do things and tried to help, and Savannah hasn't really given me anything to do, or any of the other officers. So it's not that we don't have any responsibilities or we don't have anything to do. It's just we aren't given anything. So I would do something if I had something to do, but we've asked repeatedly and nothing has really been given to us.
I can relate to that, Audrey. When I was president, I kind of felt, and this is just me personally, I kind of felt like I had to do it all. And I'm a very perfectionist type person. And So I have a hard time trusting people to do it and do it right. And that's just my personality, don't look at me like that. And anyway, I can relate to what she's going through, but I feel like she kind of, I think she feels, because she's expressed to me, she feels like she has to do it that way just because other people have. She doesn't necessarily want to delegate because she's seen past presidents just do it all themselves. I don't think it's anything against any of us. Like, I'm one of her directors too, and I haven't done much either. But I think with the new system, like Tim, it's just an idea, but the way Tim said it, that way the president can kind of oversee and take some stress off and still help in the areas that need help. But that way there's more of a specific job for everyone, and everyone can be more involved that way. Because like you said, now there isn't a lot of space and delegation for directors to help.
And that way, even the new president would already know that those other people that are going to be vice presidents or whatever will have that job. So she, from the beginning, she's not worried about who she needs to delegate that to.
I think it would be a good idea to delegate the responsibilities to multiple vice presidents.
Okay.
I don't understand how
I agree. I agree 100%.
President to delegate.
Well, I would like to add that that is the president's responsibility to delegate, and we try to teach our kids that in these junior organizations like 4-H and FFA. And we need to teach this organization that as well. I love your ideas, Tim. I think they're great. You'll have to teach kids how to delegate one way or another, and hopefully that'll come with time. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but I like your idea, Tim, where it does give everyone.
Right now, we've built this thing over the last several years for one person. Realistically, while we have two presidents, like I say, Devin's been back at this. I mean, our kids have started showing again for maybe 5 years, but we're longtime participants in this thing. But, so we've really paid close attention for the last 4 or 5 years. And I would say that in that time frame, it almost is a swap every year. We either have a horn president that takes over or a poll president that takes over. And honestly, I don't think it's the fault of either side. I'm not throwing blame any direction. I'm just telling you, typically there's one personality that will take over and run the deal, and the other one will kind of work where they can and do their things. And I think I've not seen a case in recent history where both sides weren't working very hard together to do the good. I mean, everybody was working hard to do the good, but we always, I think we're not relying on ourselves if we don't say, yeah, one side was kind of the lead. And it's not the same every year. I mean, sometimes it's a horn, sometimes it's a poll. It's definitely.
I disagree with you.
What's that?
I disagree with you because last year we split different jobs between our family and the Snyder family. So I disagree with what you're saying about one side takes over one year or the other, at least pertaining to last year, because the only reason I say that because I was part of it.
I understand. I'm just telling you what on the outside looking in, what we saw, what I saw. I'm not telling you everybody saw that. I'm just telling you that's what I saw, what our family saw. And I'm going to say now, we're talking about, and I didn't figure it last year, but 2 years ago, we were like the 8th largest single breed show in the summer. That includes all junior nationals. We're not talking about small change here. This is a big deal. And it takes a lot to run something like that, as Robbie knows, as Snyder's know, as Robbie Ray knows. Everybody on this call is seeing that. I mean, a lot of us on this call have had a president in the past and knows what it takes to do this stuff. I'm not diminishing any work that anybody's done at all. I'm just saying, if you're worried about how leadership positions are going to work, and that was how the question was phrased, that's what I would propose. Trust me, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not going to tell you that I'm the right guy, but I'm giving you my input. Talk to Riley about it a little bit. I'm not telling you it's right. We would love to have all feedback so that everybody has a spot to talk. But realistically, I think we would all have to say the more we could get our kids involved, the better off we all are. And I don't mean involved in my name's on a title. I mean like I'm making it happen. Because when I talked to the USDA lady on Friday, her comment was they all got it on paper and not very many of them had it when I talked to them. That's what I can tell you. And that's the people that hire our kids. That's what matters at the end of the day.
But back to the point is that if you're running for a officer position, no matter how many officer positions it is, then yes, I do agree with the fact that each person should be assigned each position should be assigned a specific job.
And also what I want to add, and this is, I guess, mainly towards the Horn side, in my opinion, because I know the Pold side does this, and maybe if we were to restructure just the Horn bylaws, not even if we were to merge, I think we need to have something in there that says, you have to submit an application or do a speech, something more than just getting up in front of us and telling us your name. Something to show us that you prepared and actually want this position. And I know the Pold side does an awesome job of that, and I think that's why they have the most qualified directors on their board. And I'm not saying we don't have the most qualified directors on the Horn board. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that it shows you wanted a little more if you took the time to prepare ahead of time.
I agree with you, Riley. It shows that they want the position, and they have to put some time and the effort into getting recommendations from breeders, putting together their speech, and it's not just, hey, you're coming to the meeting, hey, I want to be a director.
Exactly.
So it does show that they are interested in fulfilling their duties of whatever those duties may be.
Robbie, don't you all also require letters of reference?
Yes, we require two letters from ag teacher, 4-H coordinator, breeder, just somebody.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I know last year when I was running and I was making my poster, getting letter organization, I was starting in February, March, trying to set everything up and get a speech ready and trying to be sure the letters came from people that mean a lot to me and I know that they trust me with their value opinions, and trying to set where it looks good to, hey, I'm actually wanting to run for this instead of, like you said, kind of showing at the meeting, hey, like, this is who I am and where I'm from, and then please vote for me.
Are y'all planning on doing all of this state show?
No. So I mean, what we're still running off of is our old bylaws. Even if we decide to merge, we vote, it all happens. That wouldn't go into effect till next state show.
Okay.
No, we want to give, if that's what we decide to do, if we don't decide to merge, but we still decide, maybe that's something we want to consider for the Horn side. The Horns part of our committee can present that at the Horns meeting at state show, and then if y'all want to vote on a bylaw change, they can, and that would go into effect for next year's elections. Does anyone have any other suggestions besides Tim's idea, or they have comments on Tim's idea for restructuring our leadership positions if we were to merge? I mean, there's a million ways to set up a board. We can have a million director positions if we want. We're kind of just looking at some ideas, how other people do it. But I mean, we're our own deal. We can do whatever we want. But we'd love to hear feedback from y'all on what y'all think.
Okay, Riley,
yes, ma'am.
I guess I just want to know, what is the benefit of merging the associations? I mean, I know Kim said that sometimes the horns don't work, you know, at the state show, and sometimes they don't, the poles don't. But what is the benefit of merging the association? Even if we're going to lose money by doing it, what is the benefit of doing all this? I mean, because the membership is obviously going to be less because we don't have as many kids that are going to be members. I mean, you know, since we have the dual membership of 122. But what is the benefit of all of this?
I guess this is just from my perspective, and I don't speak on behalf of the committee or anyone. I think it would be more organized, more member friendly, I guess. Most people get really confused when you say, oh, you have a horn and a pole association, which one do I need a part of? And if they don't want to be a part of both, just from that point of view, from outside looking in, more organizational, more member friendly, easier to run state show. I mean, there's several benefits. Did you have the chance to listen to our meeting that we posted on Facebook, Ms. Hammond?
No, I did not. I'm sorry, I did not.
No, that's fine. We just went through a list. JD and I had the members send in, you know, a list of pros and cons that they thought were merging, and we kind of discussed all of them on that meeting.
Well, I will definitely go back and check that. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
I think from our standpoint, simplicity, just what we're doing. I don't think we lose any, you know, I don't think losing membership's not an issue. I guess I'd be surprised if we, from a junior standpoint, I'm not saying, I mean, because these are kids that are showing cattle. I would, you know, I think up with a combined 316, I would be surprised if we were below a combined 300. But I bet if we looked 2 years ago, we might have been a different number too. So, you know, I guess I don't think the numbers are going to change a lot. I bet on a 5-year combined flow chart thing, we wouldn't see much difference. I could be wrong, but I guess I would challenge somebody to ask a friend, if we merge, are you going to just quit being a member altogether? I guess I don't know that my family probably knows very many people that are that way, but we're probably sheltered as well, so I don't know. But I don't think we'll lose membership from the 316 where we're currently at. I bet that's a kind of an ebb and flow type of thing. But from our standpoint, it's a simplicity issue. Just making things flow easier and making our group work better, more efficiently, more effectively as much as they.
If we happen to not merge, we'd have to change things to begin with, because right now our state show is, money wise, we don't know which account is in which. There is not, how's the right way to say that? State show comes out of one account, yes, but we the horns pay for it or the poles pay for it. How's the best way to split that? Is should we have an accountant that actually runs state show that simply deals with the funds, because they'd be combined funds?
Let me clarify this.
Since all of the dues go, or all of the
I'd like to know this.
and everything you pay for goes to the Texas Hereford Youth Foundation, then maybe all that money is in one pot, and after all the expenses are taken out, then the poles get what they need, and the Herefords get what they need.
Let me clarify how it is set up right now.
Yes, sir.
Right now, all the entries, all the money, all the payout is by the Texas Hereford Youth Foundation. The Poles Association gets no money from the state show. All that money, everything, all the money that's made from the state show goes into that fund and stays in that fund. It's not split between the horned and the poles. It stays in the Texas Hereford Youth Foundation fund. It's been like that since they set up the Youth Foundation. 4 or 5 years ago, however long that's been. Prior to that, yes, the money was split.
What
Does
changed?
that answer your question, JT?
I'm sorry,
Sorry?
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Robbie. What
What
changed
did you
that?
ask?
What changed that? What made the money go, when it was split, what made it go all to the foundation account?
Easier to, it's just, actually it was an agreement between two people. And this goes back to kind of what Tim's saying, where two people are making the decision, but that's water under the bridge. But when the Horned Association, the Adult Association started the Youth Foundation, there was a discussion held with the Poll president's head advisor at that time, and they agreed to do it like that. So since then, it's been run through the Texas Hereford Youth Foundation, where they received all the entries, paid all the bills, kept all the records.
Okay.
JD, does that clarify what you're asking about how it's run?
More
Or
so,
why it's run
yes.
like that?
More so, yes. See, my mom did the entries forever. And whenever we did those, she'd get money in, and it all went to one person, but was it ever divvied up after that? Because we did entries for
3 years.
4 years. It was it seemed like forever. It was always a bad year. But
the only money that comes to the Poll juniors now are dues.
Okay.
If they send in $10 membership dues with their entry, that gets Texas Hereford Youth Foundation cuts a check to the Poll Hereford Juniors Association for the dues. That's the only money that changes hands.
The only thing I've ever been confused about money, and I think it's been cleared up for the most part, is when I was president, there was several donations that were sent to the polled side that I just was unaware of, that I got told about at state show. And I guess those were transferred to the Youth Foundation. But since they were sent to you, Robbie, first, Penny didn't notify me when she got them. And so I think it's just a miscommunication thing.
As far as I know, that any donation that is for the state show goes to the state show. It's
Okay.
not, whether it's earmarked, polled, horned, that's not the case now. Now,
Yes.
a few years ago it may have been, but not now. There's no saying that I want this to go to the polled or the horned.
Gotcha.
It all goes to the Hereford Youth Foundation.
Yes. Do y'all have any thing to add on that?
So, like we've discussed, one of the biggest things is the organization and planning of our state show.
Mm-hmm.
And we've discussed that if the juniors separate, then the adult organizations will still, they'll stay separate, and the juniors, we can merge, and it won't affect our adult organizations.
Legally.
Personally, coming from a breeder family, we would like to see the two junior associations continue to stay separate so long as the adult organizations are separate. And I know that one of the biggest things that we've discussed is the organization of our state show, but we feel like there's some other things that maybe we could put into place that would help with the organization, and maybe that could be something that we could try before we make such a decision regarding our organizations.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, this committee is all about figuring out what is the best for every junior member. And, you know, we're just talking about this. It's been talked about for years, and we figured we'd sit down, formally discuss it, and at least we did something about it. You know, we decided it's not what's best for us right now, that's fine. Maybe if it is in 10 years, we can revisit it. I mean, this is just something to sit down and discuss more formally, I guess, than just talking in the barn. But yes, Ashby, we've talked about doing a committee. We talked about restructuring the Horn side and the bylaws and updating them. There are several things we can do before we merge. But I mean, this is just kind of a discussion to see, what the benefits are, what the
With the defaults.
defaults, yeah.
Downside of it all.
Downside, yeah. But from your breeder perspective, why, can I ask why you want to keep it separate? Just
well, one reason, and this is just the way our family's always been, is we've always been strictly horn. Just in the last couple of years, we've started a little bit more with the polled. But, I realize that our state show is now combined, but even though it's a Hereford breed, it's still two separate. We have the horned Herefords and we have the polled Herefords. And so there's still two separate breeds. And I realize that there's a lot more, there's not necessarily as many straight horned Hereford breeders as there once was. And I realize that there's not as many straight polled Hereford breeders as there was. But we feel like there's still two separate breeds that we should continue to keep them separate like it has been for many years now.
Okay. Anyone have anything to add? Questions, comments, concerns?
I mean, history is important, and I don't think any one of them should go away as far as history-wise. I mean, definitely the Hereford Association, American Hereford Association, is still evidently that there's two separate ones.
So Ashby, this is just something that's been talked about, maybe not in Texas, but some other places I know of. Since we're two separate organizations, would it make sense to have two separate state shows? And I'm not proposing that. No one think I'm proposing a separate state show. But just from a hypothetical standpoint, would you attend, so now that you have some polled cattle, would you attend a polled and horn state show?
Well, since it's already a joint state show, I know you're not proposing that, but I would say that, I know we have a lot of breeders that have both, so it makes sense to have the shows still as one. I could be wrong on this, but didn't it used to be two separate shows at one point in time? And I know that would have been a long time ago.
Yes, in the late 90s and early 2000s, sometimes they merged. But I know in like the late 90s, early 2000s is when. But yes, it used to be two separate, and they used to have them in like two different locations at two different times.
Well, and I know this many years later, lots of things changed, and our state show is joined. And I understand that there's lots of people that have polled cattle and horn cattle, and so we do. Not that we have a lot, but we do have some more polled cattle, and so we would still like to just be able to haul to one show. And not have to do two separate ones. And I know that that's probably how most of us feel about it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons they ended up combining, was because people had both and they didn't want to haul to two separate ones. And that's a lot of expense and unnecessarily travel, especially from where we're from. So. But that was just a hypothetical thing. If we stay separate, just how would two separate state shows happen?
Riley Barber, Scott Nolan.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Why would you even consider going separate?
I wasn't. I was just hypothetical. Since we were separate associations, just like Angus and Red Angus, they have separate shows.
There's no hypothetical in that. We're the Hereford guys. We grew up together. We live together.
I agree. I'm not proposing that. That was nowhere near my point.
Gotcha.
Well, if I agree 100% with what Scott just said. We're the Hereford guys. This is what we do. This is how we are. Then if we take that a step, like just kind of moving forward, I think that we need to be one association. I'm not disagreeing with anything here. I think that I think all of us are smart enough to see that we're one group of people. I mean, we're all the same people. We're all the same group. We all do the same things. We show the same cattle, we breed the same cattle, we look at the same magazine, we do all the same things. I don't care what the adults do in this thing. I'm not saying the adults are the smart people in this thing. Why aren't the kids the smart people?
We better be the smart people in this thing, Tim Lockhart.
No. What I'm saying is, I don't think the adults are the smart people in this thing. I think the kids should be. I don't mind calling it up. I think the kids should be the ones that do this. If we're using the fact that the two adult associations have some older members that don't want to combine, and I feel like we derailed this conversation. But if
you may be right.
If that's where we're going with this, that's a bad thing. Because at the end of the day, the last conversation, the young lady that started this part of the conversation, as she said, their family's basically Hereford breeders, have been for generations, known them for a long time. Great people. They started to mess with some old. Then the thing was posed. Well, would you want to go to two separate state shows? Well, no, we don't want to do that. Well, okay then. What's a big deal about paying one set of dues then? Because honestly, I bet you that and I don't know this, they had a polled heifer this year, and I don't know if they do or they don't. They're still just going to pay one set of dues. Maybe that family, my family pays both, and I think Scott, y'all probably do as well. But my family pays both, but that's just because we have both. But what I'm saying is this: why do we have so much redundancy? This is too much of a problem right now.
Yeah, and Tim, I'm not shutting you off. It's simply it's a heritage thing, and you've been this, and I've been this, and we've done this 100 years, and the kids on it right now have only been involved in it a short time. I think that our next meeting on this, and I'm not involved, I just come to listen, but I think the next situation on this needs to be face to face, not on a computer or anywhere else, but to negotiate the deal. And everybody's known my position. I'm not against anybody joining together. Just want to make sure it's done right, done professionally, and done when it needs to be done. We all have nothing to gain in this Junior Hereford Association other than to raise our kids. And I think I've said that pretty plainly. And if it's not about that, then we don't need to do it at all. But it's about the kids in this deal.
I agree. And I am all for everything you just said. And what I would say is I would use my conversation with the USDA lady this week when I had to give the reference for the gal that had worked for us for the last few years as a great example. We need to be raising kids that are doing the right things, that are not just on paper, but in real life. Because I can tell you, the young lady that worked for us, and she worked for me at the state show this last year for y'all. Y'all thought y'all were paying her, but she worked for us. And I had her helping Rachel. And that young lady is awesome. I mean, and they knew she got a glowing review from me. But as the lady from USDA said, we're having a hard time right now with people that have a lot of stuff on paper that don't have anything, that can't relate to people, that can't talk to people, that can't handle situations, things like that. So while I agree 100%, we need to have, maybe this needs to be hashed out in person, face to face. I'm not disagreeing with that. I agree 100%. It only needs to be done for the right reasons. heritage, there's no, I mean, there are people on this call that have more heritage in this thing than I do, but there's not a lot. And that list is going to be short. And I'm going to tell you now, guys, I'm a guy. There's not much more important this Hereford thing to me.
Yeah.
Or to me in this Hereford thing. That's what our family does. And I'm gonna tell you now, I'm all about making sure it's done right. If it's done for the wrong reasons, if anybody wants to say that Tim Lockhart's doing it for the wrong reasons, I would tell you right now, most of y'all know my phone number. Call me. I will be happy to talk to you. I will be happy to talk to you in this medium in front of everybody. I'm not trying to push an agenda that has this doesn't benefit my children. I can tell you right now, I got 3 kids. I feel like most of them, all 3 of them probably will end up president at some point in time. I mean, just from a nutrition standpoint. But guess what? If we divide president by 2, that's half the opportunities. If that happens, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you now, the best thing that happened for my kids is for them to be a part of an association that had great presidents, that had great members, that had great people that did good things. That's the best thing for my kids.
Tim Lockhart, great job in your speech. And you and I go back a long time in what we've done in this deal when my kids first got started. But for the last 20 plus years, I have only thought about the Hereford kids, and I've only thought about that real simple. It's all about those kids. And I would be more than glad if somebody has got an issue with whether they think that we need to join or whether we don't need to join. I'd be more than glad, but I'd like to be educated on why. But at this point in time, I have not been told what the pros and the cons are and whether the pros outweigh the cons. And with that said, I'm going to get off of here because I'm not even supposed to be on this meeting because I'm not a committee member. I'm not this, but I do bleed Junior Hereford, whether it's polled or horned. And trust me on this, I will support each and every one of y'all, but I just want to be involved.
Riley, I think what we just heard was we need a list from all of our committee members and as many of the members of the associations as we can get, a list of pros and cons. I know we had some of those early on, but I think we should probably try to do as much as we can to revisit that. I agree with Scott in what he just said. I think we need to look at where the pros and cons are. And if there's no pros, we need to shut this thing down. But at the end of the day, I think what Scott said was exactly right. We need to list and make public on, I don't know, in the magazines, on social media, whatnot, what people are thinking about the pros and cons. So I think Riley and JD, sorry, Riley's the one I see in my screen more. JD, you're sitting on the side. But Riley, JD, I think we need to look at this and say, all right, let's get these pros and cons put together. And maybe we don't need to do this. Maybe most of the membership feels like this is a bad idea. In that case, that's fine. But y'all got, I think a good thing to do.
And yes, I agree. I would love to have pros and cons from every junior member, every breeder, and I feel like JD and I've reached out every way we know how. I would love any more ideas. I mean, we've done everything short of sending everyone a personalized email and letter. And I'm sorry, I don't have time for that.
Well, and the big thing is what everybody's point is that in order to feel like all of the youth, it has all of the information in order to educated vote, they basically need a tea table, you know, one side, and then it just needs to be as simple and cut and dry as that. A list of pros, a list of cons. But, you know, it comes back down to everybody saying, it comes down to you guys and our kids that are involved making the most educated decision whenever it comes down to whether they want to vote or if it should ever come to a vote to merge these two associations.
Great.
I
And
agree with
that's-
that. And I just want to throw in there that I was told this weekend by a couple of breeders at a sale that we were at that we really needed to get the opinion of the big breeders in Texas, because the big breeders in Texas, not all of them are for this merger.
Okay. Ms. Hammond, I agree. I want JD and I both want every breeder's opinions we can get. But I need ideas on how to reach them. It's going to be hard for JD and I to call each one and write down their list of pros and cons. I mean, we put it on social media and we put it in the magazines.
Riley Barber,
Yes,
contact Jack Chastain, and he can send an email out to everyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Or
Robbie, can you do the same for the
Robbie, you can do the same thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, then that's what we'll do is we'll send an email to Jack and Robbie to forward to all the breeders and see what we get back.
Big email blast.
But are you going to try to put like a time frame? You would like to have responses by X date?
Yes.
I mean, you technically would need to.
And Scott, to what you were saying, I'd love for everyone to meet in person on this committee. I really would, but with all of us being across the state, I don't think it is feasible at this time. I mean, this is as close as we're going to get until state show. And I'd really like to have at least one more meeting after we get the pros and cons in.
Something else that if y'all send out an email to the breeders, could we also do that same thing with our sponsors and see how they feel about it?
Yes, if I have their emails, then I think I have most sponsors' emails. There's a few of them that I don't know that I have, but I'm sure Jack or Robbie have them. I will send it to them as well.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
I don't know how the Horn Junior bylaws read, but I know the poll, there's no way that there can be a vote at the state show on the poll side, because every member would have a right to vote, and then not every member would be there. I would suggest maybe having a general meeting with everyone there and to have a discussion. I know that could drag out for hours and hours, but limit it to like you're talking about your pros and your cons, and then maybe if they do have some questions, they can come up to you guys, during the show and get their question answered. But I know on the poll side that there cannot be any kind of vote taken there.
Okay. And I mean, we're not saying we have to vote on this at state show. Honestly, I would love to I know we don't reach everyone by social media and through the newsletter and magazine. I would love to get everyone in one room and discuss this and have a good, discussion, question and answer session, whatever you want to call it. But we're not saying we have to vote on this at state show.
No, I understand. I'm just saying that during the meeting in January, that was the discussion that we were going to vote on it at the state show, or there was going to be a vote. Regardless, my suggestion is to have a general meeting, and for those that don't get the newsletter or the emails or do social media, everybody would be in that's attendance there can attend it. If there's time, I don't know. We may not have enough time. I know we're awful busy during the state show, and we may not. That'd kind of be up to Stephanie and Cole to decide. If there would even be time to do that.
Regardless of what we do, this is one of those kind of things, whether it happens this year, next year, 5 years from now. our family would be a hard no if it doesn't happen at a state show. And the reason being, there does not ever need to be a time that any child, any kid, any junior, however you want to word that, is out of a position. So we want them, and state shows when we elect them. So whether it happens this year or next year or the year after that or whatever, just so that that's the only time it could be actually enacted is when it changes, is then. Because I'm not going to go into a situation with, I mean, I wouldn't want my kid to get kicked out of their spot or whatever because they were, you know, because we didn't have, you see what I'm saying? Because we did it in Fort Worth and then now we got two presidents and we had to go to one, and it's going to happen at a state show, whether it happens this year, next year, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. That's when it's going to happen. From a logistical standpoint, guys.
I don't disagree, Mr. Lockhart. It's got to be a vote at the state show.
Robbie, I have a quick question for you. According to the copy of bylaws I have, and JD and I just reviewed them to be sure, it says that you have to have 12 members present for a quorum on the polled side, and that 2/3 of the members have to for a bylaw change. Do you have other bylaws that are more updated that say differently?
That's the same as I say.
That's for a general deal. To dissolve the association, every member will have a vote.
Okay.
But they don't have to necessarily be in attendance.
But would that be, so if we were to vote to do a bylaw change, which would be a merge, correct?
Oh, you could, I mean, you could do a bylaw change at any meeting called if there's enough for a quorum, to have worded, you know, to change the bylaws. But from talking to Ms. Wright about this, if the Junior Pole Association dissolves or is thinking about dissolving, each member gets a vote, whether to dissolve or not.
I'm looking at the bylaws and I don't see that under this clause. I'm looking at the Board of Trustees, and it's funny how in this set of bylaws, the Horn set's kind of iffy as well, but this set of bylaws, we have a couple of different things, but Board of Trustees is one of the things that is named in here, and I assume that's Board of Directors, and that's what, when we asked Dorothy what she thought the same thing. I don't know who we go to for clarification, but the Board of Trustees would determine how that would get paid out under the dissolution clause, Article 15.01. I don't see anything where every member gets to vote. Now, I mean, trust me, I'm all about every member getting to vote, but that happens up way further up under voting and stuff like that.
All right, what are you referring to? Something getting paid out?
Well, there's a lot of money there. Well, if we dissolve the Junior Pole
Well, the 501c3 laws regulate where that money goes.
Which is why Anna.
That has to be determined, and that's written in our bylaws.
Anna, correct me if I'm wrong. You recommended that we, instead of dissolve one of the associations, that we merge. That way, in accordance with the 501c3 laws, that we could merge the funds. Was that correct, Anna? Anna, can you hear me?
Oh.
I guess not. Anna said, I guess previously to me, that she, from her understanding, thought that if we didn't dissolve the associations and just merged them,
Riley, I'm not sure that you can legally just merge a 501c3
and just call it quits. I don't think that that's how that can happen.
I mean, I have no idea. I have no legal, I have no idea.
Yeah, you can't merge a 501c3. You can't merge a 501c3. You have to have a different entity. You would have to have a new name.
So under our poll bylaws, under the poll bylaws 15.01, upon dissolution of the association, the Board of Trustees shall, after paying and making provisions for the payment of all liabilities of the association, dispose of all assets of the association exclusively for the purpose of the association in such manner or to such organization or organizations organized and operated exclusively for charitable, educational, religious, or scientific purposes as shall at the time qualify as an exempt organization or organizations under the 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 or corresponding, provisions of future United States Internal Revenue law as the Board of Trustees shall determine. Any such assets not disposed of shall be displaced by the Court of Common Pleas of county in which the principal office of corporation is located exclusively for such purposes or such organizations as said shall determine, which are organized and operated exclusively for such purposes. Period. That was the end of that 15.01, which I'm not a lawyer, definitely. But what that said was the Board of Trustees basically can give that to another 501c3. I'm not telling you that I'm a lawyer and know what I just read. I'm just telling you what I read from the copy that dated June of 2014.
Right. You can. The 501c3 has the right to gift that money to another association. You are correct.
I just read what
but doesn't that association have to be willing to give that money to the other association?
That is correct.
Yeah. That has to be by a vote, no doubt about that.
I hate to interrupt, but we are getting awfully technical here, and I'd really like to hear some junior discussion on some questions, if y'all don't mind.
All right. The senior member is fixing to reside on this, so thank you very much. Y'all have a good night. Good job. And I applaud all the people that are trying to get all this done and make it happen. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you, Scott. But I was just going to go back to the questions that were asked of the committee before, okay, guys? And I know it's kind of getting late, so I want to get these questions answered. And we can go back to that later if we want to. But I'd really like the committee to have a chance to look at these. So I think we covered leadership positions, and we can add more to that later if y'all need to. But, you know, something Ashby kind of talked about is we talked at our last meeting about having a committee-run state show, kind of similar to what Tim recommended. How would that change everything? Anyone have any ideas?
Riley, what was the question? I'm sorry.
If we have a committee that runs state show, kind of like we talked about in our last meeting, how would that change anything? Or, I mean, is that still something that, I mean, we're even considering?
I think that it would be dependent on how you worded your officer positions. If you dedicate different things or aspects to those officer positions, then it would be based off of, that would pretty much be your committee.
Yes. Any juniors have any discussion?
Yes, I'm thinking that if we possibly change it to where there's several vice presidents that are each in charge of a certain specific task category, we wouldn't really need a committee as much. They can have kids that help them with that. They can appoint members to help them with that.
And I think that kind of goes along with what Tim was saying earlier. You know, you might have the vice president of livestock, but below that you might have a committee chair of showmanship, a committee chair of entry, a committee chair of show ring organization, you know, that type of thing. And I think that would kind of be where the committee would come into play. It would just be, it wouldn't change a ton from our process we have now. It would just be, there's more a direct line of
people in charge or organization
to report to. But that's just an idea.
Riley, one thing that Savannah and I had discussed, and you were present, was the deal about the co-chair, having a co-chair for each committee, that we could have that co-chair kind of be like a incoming president almost, where they know the committee that they're going to be responsible for next year. Like they would step up in place of the chair's position. And that would help this confusion about who does what, and again, put more responsibility on the kids and off of the parents.
Yes. So with the proposed idea that Tim had, so you'd have your president over everything, kind of overseeing, helping, making sure everything got done right. Then you'd have, you know, your 3 or 4 vice presidents under that. And then under each vice president, you'd have your committee chair of each of their sections. So on the vice president of events, or I don't remember what you called it, Tim, but you'd have one for showmanship, one for creative arts, one for team marketing, one for team fitting. And then below that, you would have a co-chair. So that is what Stephanie is talking about, someone to learn that position so that they are ready to take it over next year. Is that correct, Stephanie?
So like a president.
Okay.
That's a good idea, because then it also prepares kids and they kind of know what's expected of them as well. They know what to do.
When it comes
and if they see stuff that they think needs to be improved on, they know how to do that as well.
Does anyone like that idea? Have any feedback? You know, what would you change about it? Have something completely different?
No, and Stephanie just said that, Stephanie just said that, you know, and with that president-elect, then that's automatically is the president
yes.
as well.
And we don't have a president-elect on the Horn side, do we?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's one thing we thought about, you know, if we don't merge or, you know, we don't do it whenever, you know, maybe just updating the Horned bylaws, because I don't have them pulled up in front of me, but I think they were last updated in like 95, something like that. And, you know, maybe restructuring the Horn side of things so we can have a president-elect. And so maybe it's easier to pass stuff down and, you know, the president-elect can learn more.
So just my opinion on the president-elects is it's a great idea having someone learn the president's position, but I don't like the fact that they automatically get the position once their president's term is over. I honestly think it should have to be a rerun or something like that.
Okay.
Where it's almost like a vice president is learning that position, and then the president, as they step away from the president's position, they move into almost like an advisor's position.
Agreed.
Tim and I talked about that too, kind of making, if you were to run for president, almost making it like kind of like a 3-year term. Basically, you run to be president-elect. And, you know, if you need to restructure that so you have to run for president, that's fine. But once you get into that president position, you also accept another year basically, or a term. That way you're in there as a past president role, or just someone there that's easily accessible to have guidance, to answer any questions the president has. And I mean, most of the past presidents do that now anyway. We don't have to have a specific title for it. That's not necessary. But, you know, in some cases, you know, maybe this is the president's last year, and they're not going to be there the next year. So they can't answer questions directly and see what's going on. So basically, we were kind of thinking, you know, maybe that would have to, you know, if you get elected that president, maybe it's a 4-year term for you. I mean, this is still just ideas rolling around in our head. But, with something we thought about making it basically a 3-year position where you are a president-elect, a president, and then a past president, basically. Does that make sense, or did I confuse people?
No, it makes sense. But back again on the president-elect deal, I'm not a huge fan of the president-elect moving straight into the president's position.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's something, you nominate them for that president-elect, but maybe you make sure and revote that next year and make sure you want them as president. The only disadvantage would be you don't have someone with that experience or knowledge moving into that president position. But I mean, if that's something that we all want to think about, we re-vote on that president-elect when they're moving into that president position, that's fine. I mean, I would feel bad for the kid that was elected as the president-elect because he or she has spent that time learning that position and paying attention. Not that skill won't be important to them later on, but they've been basically trained for that role and they won't get the chance to act on it.
I feel if we do happen to rerun or re-elect for president-elect, they need to have a speech talking about what they've done over the year, what they've learned, and what they think they can bring to the table as our president. And if we were to have a revote that next year for them and someone else brings up and they weren't president-elect and they happen to have better, qualities as a president, then that might be something we could discuss about trying to change up. There are people who aren't the president-elect because people didn't vote them as president-elect that might have a better chance or be the better solution to being the president.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these are all just
legislative officers will still need to be accepted when you vote on it. So they don't automatically get it. So when you do vote in something like this, a slate of officers will be accepted. If there wants to be a change, someone can always throw up somebody. The president-elect is only considered automatic. It is not officially automatic. Yeah. And there can always be somebody that runs against them. But it's
that is correct.
When somebody else is trained. Now, I mean, there are instances where people didn't follow through with what their commitment was, and that can change.
Yeah, and then moving back on from where we were earlier in the conversation about the president's delegating out, the responsibilities and everything. And yeah, that is the president's job to delegate, but at the same time, it should be the officers and the directors' jobs to go to the president and say, what can I do?
Yes, exactly. And I think in some situations, they've tried, and I mean, I'm at fault at this. I'm a little too much of a perfectionist, and I don't want to let y'all do stuff. That was me. Sorry. But yes, as a good president, would have let y'all do stuff. So, any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay.
I just want to say, all these kids, y'all are doing a really good job. Keep up the hard work. Keep doing what you're doing. We're all so proud of you as parents. No matter what any of us say on this call or anything like that, as members of this committee, you guys are doing a great job.
And I know it's getting late, so if y'all don't have anything else to say on the committee or leadership positions, we'll move on because it's almost 9 o'clock. Will everyone be as involved? I mean, I think we kind of hit on this in our last meeting. We don't really see anyone not supporting us or not being as involved, just because if we potentially merge, we don't see that as an issue, but obviously people have. So, I mean, if y'all feel the same way or know why someone would not be as involved, we would love to hear it.
I don't think your involvement's going to change.
Okay. Does anyone know why involvement would change? Nope. Okay.
No.
Okay. And then how will money be handled? And will the juniors be handling it? I think this is a large association with lots of money involved. Personally, I don't think a junior should be solely in charge of that. Definitely not. And it's easily, honestly, to mistake something and get something wrong. I think we need to have more of a, more like a financial committee maybe, or something similar. And I'm assuming, no, it depends what will happen, but I'm assuming we'll still use the Texas Hereford Youth Foundation account to run state show.
I think having a financial committee would be a good idea.
Is there any other suggestions, comments? And like we kind of hit on earlier, if we merge, don't merge, hypothetically, if we did, that we'll figure out later on as we get closer to that, how the money between associations will be divvied up. We don't need to worry about that now until we figure out what we're going to do. So, does anyone have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything else they'd like to add? No.
Not me.
We asked y'all at the end of last meeting to, get in touch with, other juniors in your area, breeders. We still want y'all to do that. Does anyone have anything to report? I realize it's been a busy time of year, but has anyone had the chance to talk to some outside people and see what they thought?
Most people I have talked to have been in favor of us combining because they honestly haven't seen the reason why we stayed separate for so long, whereas we're still the only state that is separate. But most people are like still thinking we'll stay involved in everything, and they just honestly think it might be better for everyone just to combine. Now this is from people different breeds because of me being a different breed person besides just mainly Polled and Horned Herefords. So it's coming from like Charolais and Simmentals. But I mean, honestly, they just feel how long, like, reason why we stayed for so long, and I haven't been able to answer that.
Any input is welcome, no matter who it's from.
And I've done some talking around with people in my area that are juniors. And from what they've seen and what we've presented them with, they don't see a reason to combine.
Okay. Did they have any questions for you about it?
I haven't got any questions yet. I'm going to keep asking and see what I can come up with.
Okay.
We had talked to some polled breeders in Houston, and they said if the associations combined, they would still do sponsorships and that it wouldn't change that.
Okay.
Well, I talked to some breeders up in the North Texas area, and they said that all the breeders, the big breeders, were not in favor of the combination.
I'm sorry, you broke up at the beginning. Can you repeat it, Ms. Hammond?
I said I've talked to several breeders in the North Texas area, and they said if the associations combined, they were not in favor of it.
Okay. Did they give you reasons why?
They just said they were just not in favor of it. They just need that the junior associations need to talk to the breeders around this area because they were not in favor of it.
Okay. Would you be willing to email me some names? I'd love to talk to them.
Okay, either that or you can go on to surveymonkey.com and send out to everybody and get their opinion of this.
Okay. I think that's one thing we plan to do is, as y'all recommended earlier, is we'll send out a letter asking for pros and cons, and we'll have Robbie and Jack send out an email blast. And we'll include that link on there.
Okay.
All the people that I've talked to, they have been against it.
Okay. Did you ask why?
Because they're concerned about the scholarships and how they would be dealt out and everything.
What kind of questions about scholarships?
Like what the requirements would be, since some of them now are if they're Hereford or if they're Horned Hereford.
Okay. Did these people happen to listen to our last meeting that we posted or no?
Yes.
They did? Okay. Well, kind of like we hit on in the last meeting, just so y'all are informed and can kind of tell them what we're thinking as a JD and I, that we don't want the scholarships to change. And we've talked to both members of the auxiliary and the Paulettes. And, you know, that's kind of a work in progress depending on where we go with this. I don't think the Paulettes or the auxiliary or any people that do memorial scholarships want to take their scholarships away. I think they will accommodate whatever the juniors decide. But, I mean, as we get closer and we see what's going to happen, that's something, you know, we'll reach out to everyone and see, you know, what will happen with the scholarships. Is it just going to be a simple, you have to have a polled heifer, you know, registered in your name? Do you have to be, you have to have a horned heifer registered or horned animal registered in your name, something like that. I don't think we are going to lose any scholarships because at the end of the day, I think everyone wants what's best for the junior association. And I think scholarships are no doubt what's best for our juniors. So.
And junior bards aren't in charge of the scholarships. It's the Paulettes and the auxiliary. And in their requirements, we've had in the past both a horn or a polled kid get either a polled scholarship if they are a horn kid. It just matters if they meet the requirements. It doesn't honestly, oh, you're only a horn kid, you can only get horn scholarships. No, it matters as long as you meet the requirements for both scholarships.
Yep, exactly. Does that help answer some questions, Cooper?
Yes.
Okay. Has anyone else reached out, heard any comments, concerns, questions?
The breeders I've talked to breeders and I've talked to some sponsors, and the majority of them have been against it and feel very strong that we stay separate.
Okay.
That's just a couple of the ones that I've talked to.
Okay. Did they give you reasons why?
Some of the things that they brought up were potentially losing the Hereford and the Polled Hereford Steer Show in Fort Worth, that it would combine those sales spots.
Yes.
So that was one of the biggest things. Another thing, like what was just discussed, was scholarships. And then the sponsor that I did talk to said that they were not for our juniors combining. They didn't really go into great detail for why they felt like that, but they were very strong that we should stay separate.
Do you think they would pull support from us?
Yes, they said that they would pull their sponsorship if we were to combine.
Can I ask who it is?
I would like to not necessarily give their name right now. I can
That's fine.
maybe text you later about it.
That's fine.
But I don't know how they feel about everybody knowing yet.
Nope, that's perfectly fine. And we appreciate their comments, their suggestions. We want to hear it all. I mean, we aren't set, you know, this is what we're doing. This is not what we're doing. We want to hear it. Every side, we want to know every nook and cranny of this decision. So, anyone else?
I have a question for you, Riley. What would happen to all of the rest of the major spots for the sales, for the steer sales?
I can't answer that. As far as I know, and that's just what people have personally told me, nothing's changing. Now, I mean, everyone, we talked about this earlier, we heard the rumors. Everyone's talked to different people. They say Fort Worth is going to merge.
That's a rumor. That came straight from Stefan's mouth. That is not a rumor. It came straight from his mouth.
Okay. I mean, I haven't heard that. So, I mean, Miss Hammond said she talked to Stefan about it, okay? But, I mean, it's not, is it in writing yet, Miss Hammond, that they're changing it?
No, it's not, but they have had several meetings since the Fort Worth Stock Show discussing this, and they have already, like, talked to several different people, and they were going to bring in either the Red Angus or Charlet, or maybe a different, like, dark cross or something like that. So, I mean, it's not a rumor. He has said that. He has said that to, like, 4 different people. I mean, so I mean, that's just what he said. He said that yesterday.
Because that's going to be 36 kids without sales spots at Fort Worth if we combine.
So why the hell would you even think about it?
I mean, that's not our goal. This is just something we're exploring. we don't want to lose any sales spots. They
Well,
have
it's not
talked
the
to
sales spot. It's not the sales spot. It's the breeders who actually sell to Hereford or the polled Hereford who are losing those sales. And that's our industry. We that's what we do. We sell Herefords. We sell polled Herefords. We don't want to lose that.
I agree, and I'm a polled Hereford and horn breeder. We sell steers too. We don't want to lose those sales spots either.
Right. But it will happen. It will happen. It may not happen in 2019, but it will probably happen in 2020 if we combine.
Okay. Do you think even if we don't combine, do you think it's going to happen?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I feel like combining will just be another reason to combine the two breeds.
Okay.
At the show.
I feel if it's going to happen, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. If we combine or if we don't combine, it's still up to them if they're going to combine the steer show. Fort Worth and all the other ones are separate. They're going to do whatever they want. We're not going to have a huge effect in their decision.
Stephen said as long as we are a separate association, two junior associations, it will not combine. There would be no reason for it to combine. And as long as the AHA keeps the money in the heifer show, it will not combine.
Ms. Heyman, I have a question for you just because I don't know. How many Hereford breeders sell steers, do you know, that are members of our?
I do not know.
Okay.
I apologize, I do not know that answer,
No,
but
that's perfectly fine. I mean, I was just curious. I don't know. I don't even know if there's a way to get that information, but I was just curious to see if you did know.
No, there's not any way to get the information unless we ask every breeder, every polled Hereford or horn Hereford breeder to ask the person who buys a steer from them to become a member of the junior association.
I agree. And I mean, that was something I kind of hit on earlier. You know, there's 20% of our kids, at least, that made the sale whole, but maybe, you know, we need to reach out to the kids that are the other 80%, ask them to be part of our association, ask them for where they get their calves to be part of our association. My fear, and I'll be honest with you, is that the majority of those calves are not purebred. And I don't think that's something we need.
But then you have the breeders who are the purebred, and you know, they sell to these kids. They could ask these kids to be members of the association.
I agree. No, and I agree. I think we need as many members as possible, and I would love to reach out to every one of them and ask them to be.
And I would like to point out, Riley comes from a family of horned and polled. I mean, they have a predominant over there, but they, y'all have shown you're members of both associations, and Mary Barber does, it's crazy to have two different organizations. So there are a lot of opinions out there, and the main goal right now is to get all the opinions, and we can shut this down once and for all if the kids vote on it and it's a negative. It's important to listen to everybody. And Riley, I think you're doing an awesome job dealing with these questions, and I think you've been on the phone a lot, and you've talked to Stefan as well, and I value, and I know everyone else values the work that you and JD are doing. I think we've made it very, very clear that no one wants to take away sell slots at the majors. And if it comes down to that, you can guarantee these kids are not going to vote on it. I would hope.
And going back to the purebred, or if it's crossbreds, it isn't the breeders that decide if they get in, it's the classifiers. And so whatever they want can get sold and bought, but it's ultimately the classifiers that
Well, I think we all know everyone's, we've heard what people have said. We don't know, I guess for sure what's going to happen with the steers at any shows. We don't want them to, obviously. We don't want them to combine our heifer shows, and I don't think that's in danger of it right now. These are just what we're talking about and what everyone's thinking, and I think we've had a great meeting so far.
But honestly, we don't know if they will combine our heifer shows at some point in time, because if you can, I mean, you need to talk to Jack Ward and find out if the junior associations merge. Are you going to pull the $1,065 from the Fort Worth Stock Show and combine our heifer shows?
Okay, I will see Jack next weekend, I believe. I will ask him in person.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. If I don't see him then, I'll shoot him an email.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, ma'am. Is there any other question, comments, concerns that needs to be discussed tonight?
I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Well,
And
thanks
so
everyone.
did the rest.
Thanks everyone for getting on. We loved hearing everyone's opinions, thoughts, comments, concerns. I mean, we're still encouraging you to go out, talk to juniors, talk to breeders. Kaylee, great idea talking to other junior associations, see what they do, see what they think. We want everyone's opinion that we can get. JD and I will get working on getting a survey and a letter out that we can send out in an email blast. And hopefully we will get some more input and some more suggestions and comments. If anyone has anything
Riley,
else?
Will you post this on Facebook like you did your last one so that we can reach out to as many people as possible?
Yes, ma'am, I will. Although I did notice there was an error at the beginning, so I didn't catch the very beginning, but it caught most of the meeting. It sent me an error message, but most of it's recorded, so we will post that on Facebook.
Riley, you did an awesome job tonight.
Thank you. All right, well, thank y'all so much. I'm sorry it was so late. I didn't intend for it to go this late, but I think we had some good discussion, and we will talk. JD and I will send some emails out and get some more information, and then we'll schedule our next call. Thank y'all so much for getting on tonight.
Thanks, Riley.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Y'all have a good week.
You too.
Thank you.
Yeah.